We'll start our meeting with our land acknowledgement. On February 14th, we acknowledge that this sacred land on which Smiths Falls is now located has been a site of human activity for over 10,000 years and is rich in Indigenous history. This land is the ancestral and unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation. We are grateful to the Algonquin ancestors who cared for the land and water in order that we might meet here today. We are also grateful to the Algonquin people for their contribution in the making of the Rideau Canal, which runs through Smiths Falls. We're mindful of broken covenants and the need to reconcile with all our relations. Together, may we care for this land and each other, drawing on the strength of our mutual history of nation building through peace and friendship, being mindful of generations to come. There are regrets tonight from only one council member. Councillor Dwyer can't make it today, but everyone else will be here. I think Councillor Alfred is going to join us shortly. Are there any amendments to the agenda? Seeing none. Any disclosure of monetary interest? Okay, seeing none. There are no delegations this afternoon. However, I need a motion to adopt minutes. Councillor Brennan, seconded by Councillor McKenna. That the minutes of the January 17th, 2022, January 24th, 2022, January 31st, 2022, and February 7th, 2022 Committee of the Whole meetings be received and filed. All in favor? Carried. There are no CAO or director's reports, I believe, and there's no correspondence items or in-camera items. So we're going to start right away with our priority issues. And our first one is exemption to procurement bylaw, select 2022 capital items request. And that's with our manager of water and wastewater treatment of Town of Smiths Falls, Jason Barlow. Welcome, Jason.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson, members of council. Tonight I bring forward report 2022-009, and that's for exemptions to the procurement bylaw for select 2022 capital items. The purpose of the report is to seek council approval for the exemption and procurement of goods and services bylaw to allow the procurement of select services and goods between $2,000 and $20,000, and also select goods and services that are greater than $20,000 in 2022. There's a list of the capital items in the analysis and options for review. But the recommendation, or there's two options. One, the recommendation is to have council authorize the exemption to the procurement of services and goods. The option two, which is not recommended, is to not authorize the exemption. And just as for more information, the procurement policy is under review with the objective of modernizing approaches to purchasing, adjusting spending thresholds to reflect the realities of our operation. And the review will also cover inflationary impacts since the last revision to the policy was made. So the Corporate Services Department expects to present a refreshed draft policy over the summer months. So the recommendation for adoption is that Council of the Corporation of Town of Smiths Falls authorize an exemption to the procurement of goods and services bylaw 7850-2004 as amended to permit the purchase of select goods as outlined in report 2022-009 from the manager of water wastewater treatment.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from my colleagues? Mayor Panko, go ahead.
Thank you. Great report, Jason, and you really spell it out clearly. I mean, we've got some products, some equipment that's proprietary, others like pump rebuilds that, as you've indicated, are pretty difficult to get a quote for something. They don't know exactly what work needs to be done until they start to take the pump apart, as well as the cleaning, as an example, where you will get quotes from qualified vendors. So I think it makes a lot of sense. And as you mentioned, our procurement policy is up for review. The amounts will likely be amended at some point in time. But I support the recommendation.
Anyone else? Go ahead, Councillor Brennan.
I support it as well. And I'm happy to hear the policies being reviewed, because this type of thing, as we all know, we're responsible for delivering clean water and treating wastewater. So it's of the utmost importance. And so these are not big, huge ticket items, but we need to enable staff to take care of business so we can deliver those services. So I support it.
Anyone else? Thumbs up. Councillor McGuire, did you want to speak? No? Okay. All right. So that's great. You have your wish. Go ahead and proceed with option 1. Thank you for coming today.
Thanks.
The next priority issue is former water treatment plant draft RFP report 2022-11, and that's with our Manager of Economic Development and Tourism, Julia Crowder. Welcome, Julia.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you to committee. The report before you is with regards to the former wastewater treatment plant RFP. Staff is presenting the draft RFP for your review today. The purpose of the report is to provide council with an opportunity to review and give feedback on the draft RFP, and also to seek direction with respect to a heritage evaluation, as well as obtain approval for the commencement of the formal RFP process. So we know that the former water treatment plant is a site that's located just at the base of the downtown core. The property is in a prime location and offers incredible development opportunities for the right investor. It's adjacent from Parks Canada's headquarters and overlooks the Rideau Canal. The property has been up for RFP a number of times previously, so this would be the third iteration of the RFP. In 2017, the RFP was released and 2 qualified bidders put in proposals, and council ultimately chose 1 proponent. Over the last 4 years, staff has worked with that developer in an effort to move the project forward, and progress was being made for final concepts and cost estimating, but because of COVID-19, the pandemic resulted in unexpected challenges for the developer, which impacted the project and timeline as well as feasibility. And ultimately, the proponent felt that the project could not move forward. Bye-bye. And so council directed staff to issue the RFP process. We also know that the property is currently designated under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act, and that's under bylaw 4350-77. The heritage bylaw is currently broad in nature and doesn't cite specific heritage features that are intended to be preserved at the moment, but our official plan sets out provisions which requires the completion of a heritage impact assessment as part of any future development through the site plan control process. As part of the drafting of the RFP, we consulted with the Heritage Committee, and the Heritage Committee put forth a recommendation to council that council seek to obtain clarification on heritage features. So that's part of the recommendation today. Because there's no proposal currently on the development, staff feel that it would be a little premature at the moment in order to do a full heritage impact assessment. So we looked at other options, including a cultural and heritage evaluation report called a share. We may be able to expedite the process of getting an evaluation completed through this process, because currently the planning division is working with consultants to update the heritage designation bylaws. And infrastructure is working with another proponent for the Confederation Bridge project, which includes a share as well. So on the table, staff are putting out 3 options for council's consideration. Option 1 is to direct staff to move forward with the RFP and a marketing campaign as outlined. Option 2 is to direct staff to propose or postpone the release of the RFP to facilitate the completion of a cultural heritage evaluation and amend the draft RFP to reflect recommendations of heritage features to be preserved as part of the redevelopment proposals. Or option 3, direct staff to postpone the release of the RFP to facilitate the completion of a full heritage impact assessment as recommended by the Municipal Heritage Committee and amend the draft RFP to reflect recommendations of heritage features to be preserved as part of the redevelopment. So with either a share or a heritage impact assessment, there will be budget and financial implications. Staff reached out to both project consultants, being the Heritage Bylaw Update and the Confederation Bridge EA, to obtain some estimates with regards to a share. They estimated that a share could cost between $5,000 and $20,000 depending on the scope, and it could take between 4 and 6 weeks in order to complete that. Costs and timelines of a heritage impact assessment would have to be determined through a formal RFP process, and we, again, based on the scope. And generally, because this is a more involved process, we estimate that the project would take longer and be more expensive to complete. As part of the RFP, staff is also looking at doing a campaign in order to build interest related to the RFP prior to it being released. And we're putting $2,500 towards that through staff's operating budget. So I'm happy to answer any questions or clarification if council has
Thank
any.
you for that. Councillor McGuire has his hand up first. Go ahead, Councillor McGuire.
Thanks a lot. It's great to see the updated draft, and there's a lot of really solid improvements in it. So thank you for all the work that's gone in. My question is regarding the bylaw update. Do we have a timeline of when that'll be completed? And if that would be completed before the share would be completed, or how that plan would work out?
Through you, Madam Chair. Those are estimated to be 4 to 6 weeks as well. Planning staff is currently working with the consultants for the heritage bylaw updates as we speak. This would be almost a separate proposal as part of that, but because we're already in the process working with these consultants, it would help expedite that. The Confederation EA, I know Paul is currently working with the consultants as well. I don't have an estimate on that specifically, but my estimate is probably within, the next 2 months. I think he's looking to bring that back in June to council for information.
Thanks. I think it's important to note that not related to this, but the Heritage Committee voted to get those bylaws updated with their budget in 2020. And now we're into 2022 and we're still looking at that. And I think if that was completed, this would be a lot more straightforward because we'd have these attributes set out. We'd know exactly what we need to value, what we don't need to value. And I think, I really don't want to overcomplicate this here. I think things got a little bit off the rails at the last MHC meeting. And that came down to the lack of information and lack of clarity that comes down to what is a CHER, what's in heritage impact assessment, and where are we at in this process. I think at the end of the day, we've only got 2 mill complexes left on the river. Right now we own one of them, and it would be a shame to see that disappear. And I don't think we need to overcomplicate it, but I'm concerned with the scoring and with some of the aspects of the RFP that don't set that in stone. I think if it's something that we want to preserve certain buildings on that site, or we'd like to see the RFPs preserve those buildings, I think that needs to be clear, because it was definitely a point of contention when the last bid was selected. So I can appreciate why we wouldn't want to go ahead with the heritage impact assessment without a design. We don't know what the impact's going to be. It's going to be difficult to do that. I would support the cultural heritage evaluation report, but I don't want it to overlap with the bylaw rewrite. So as long as those things are streamlined, then I think that would get it done. And if this is delayed 6 to 8 weeks, when we look at the grand scheme of things, getting it released in March versus June, I think it's more important to get this right, and definitely to learn from the last round where we had issues with demolition being proposed. So that's my take. Thanks.
So just to be clear, Councillor McGuire, is that option 2?
Yes, sorry.
No, I just want to keep track here. So that's good. Okay, who else would like to go? I saw, go ahead, Councillor McKenna, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess I just had a question regarding both the cultural heritage evaluation report and the heritage impact assessment. My question is, if we proceed with either of those, what are the obligations if we do those reports? With the findings, are we obliged to, does that lock us into the results of that assessment? Or is that just offer guidance and information for future decisions? So does it bind us to the outcome or the results of those, either of those reports, is my question.
Through you, Madam Chair, to Councillor McKenna. So it would be a report, an assessment. It would have to come back to council, and council would have to determine if they wanted to put those elements or features into a bylaw. If that does happen, then a developer would then be locked into preserving those features.
So thank you. I think that clarifies it. It's information, valuable information for us in the future. It doesn't, once we do it, it doesn't bind us to the results of that. We would have that option if I, thank you. And I'm still, I wish my other comment, I would appreciate Councillor Dwyer's input into this matter as well. It's unfortunate she can't be here tonight. Thank you.
So, which option is your option 1? Is that right, Councillor McKenna? Where did you go?
Where did I go?
I think through you, Madam Chair, and just supplemental to Councillor McKenna's, I think if the report does come through, I think the intention would be that this would be the recommended option to preserve those specific heritage features. Even though it is just information and council can take that information and do what they wish to it, I think you wouldn't then go out again to seek other recommendations on what features should be preserved or not preserved. And again, the developer will have to do that as part of site plan control process. And through that process, council also has the opportunity to direct what features may or may not be preserved once that assessment is done, and through that process as well.
And to answer your question, Madam Chair, I'm just going to listen to the discussion for a little bit before I make up my mind. Thank you.
No, that's fine. Thank you. Councillor Brennan, you had your hand up next, I believe.
I didn't, sort of. I think Councillor Alford did. So if you want to go ahead, Wendy, then I certainly will weigh in.
My apologies. Go ahead, Councillor.
No, it's okay.
Yeah, no, it didn't matter which of us went first.
No.
With regard to my thoughts on this, I just want to, so the share would indicate to us what is important to preserve through, I think, more of a document search, it sounds like to me, than anything. Is that fair to say, Julia? Okay. So, but it gives us an idea of what needs to be preserved. In my unschooled heritage background, which is none, except what Councillor Dwyer and Councillor McGuire have given me, and Councillor Allen. For me, the important parts would be preserving anything that was built in the 1800s and early 1900s. Those we can mostly see, and identify. So if we were to choose option 2, the share thing, then it does, and Julia sort of touched on it. I was thinking about the design has to still go through the Planning Advisory Committee, and at that point, the Planning Advisory Committee has the ability to also weigh in on what features have to be maintained. So we have a couple of different ways in which the town can ensure that any developer preserves the important parts of those sites, important culturally and from a heritage perspective. So I am, and I'm not going to come down hard on the share, but I think I'm leaning more to the option 2, because there is some timelines here. Again, Councilor McGuire said, whether we get this done tonight or 3 months from now in the grand scheme of things isn't all that important, although I understand the timelines that we'd like to see this move forward when we've, sort of spun our wheels for 4 years. But it is really important because this is the signature piece of our entire downtown waterfront masterpiece that we've been working towards. So I would rather set out some parameters with the share and then ensure that we leave ourselves enough options going forward through site plan control. So at that point, I'll stop talking, but right now I'm leaning to option 2.
Councillor Brennan, did you want to go next?
I can. Yeah, I mean, this is a long time coming.
11 years.
And yeah, years and years. And actually, this predates this council. The last council had an opportunity, I think, to move forward. We didn't, regrettably. And now I think that staff have come forward with a marketing plan and a way to get this done. I appreciate and support that we need to, this is signature. We need to ensure that the heritage components, the recognition of what this site means to the town of Smith Falls. I think that with staff's recommendation, that can be done. My one question would be, in the marketing plan that we're going to put forward to try to sell this to developers, and I don't know that it's going to be that easy of a sell. It's probably easier the way things have been going for us, but it needs to be done correctly. And in that plan, I would hope that when you're talking to people that are interested in spending millions of dollars, that there's some sort of accommodation, recognition, and hopefully commitment that there will be a bridge to connect that site to the rest of the town, because I think that would be an important, I'm not a developer, but if I was, that would be an important point to me. Otherwise, I support staff's recommendation to get this moving forward. I have all the confidence in the world that we'll put out a great RFP with lots of interest, is what we want. But that one component, I think, is an important piece. So I'm option 1 with the bridge included.
So through you, Madam Chair, I wanted to just highlight for Council Brennan that within the RFP document itself, we did highlight pedestrian routes and potential options, which did show the trail that connects right behind the tap house and up to the stairs that were put in through the development, as well as the bridge or the locks that are currently in between the proposed site and Parks Canada, the west building. So we are suggesting that those connections be made and that it connect with our active transportation priorities and walkable city kind of plan.
Yeah, I read that, and that I appreciate that being in there, but it's a vehicular bridge, and I think that's an important component for someone that wants to put, i.e., apartments. And so, I mean, that's a decision of council. I'd love to hear what my colleagues think about having cars going across that bridge. I would think, for me, I'd like to see that happen. It would, it was 6 or 7 years ago that it's been closed. And anyway, I think it's not up to me, it's up to all of us. So
Thank you for that. Mayor Panko, let's go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Julia, for I think a very robust RFP, and I applaud you that it's comprehensive, complete, and I think hopefully it'll attract with the marketing plan some great submissions from some real solid developers. I won't get into the bridge discussion. We'll have that discussion on another date when that comes forward. But and I'm somewhat mixed here. I mean, I in many ways want to cast a net as wide as possible to capture as much attention as we can from the development community without having a lot of restrictions in place or maybe excessive expectations possibly. But at the same time, I think it's probably beneficial to give them some reasonable expectations about what we could expect, what they may need to expect and adhere to when it comes to preservation of the heritage elements of this building. So I think I'm leaning I think towards option 2, but I also want to make sure that we don't if we proceed with the share, is it an absolute certainty we would delay the issue of the RFP, or could the share be completed while we start with the issue of the RFP March 7th and through that first process? Because my only concern really is that we also have, so the RFP is to be, a council decision by June 20th. And if we end up being delayed for 2 months if we're waiting for the share, it pushes us to nomination day, August 19th. And the risk there is that we could be in a lame duck situation and it gets parked until a new council is in position in November or December, where it will be, which probably isn't great for developers that have to sit and wait to see what's going on and may move on to other interests. So I would want to make sure that we are able to meet dates if we're going to follow through with the share and option 2.
Go ahead, Julia.
Through you, Madam Chair. So having the flexibility in the redevelopment of a site like this would provide more out-of-the-box solutions or different proposals from proponents if there aren't specific heritage features identified. We tried to do as staff a really good job within the RFP to identify that this is a heritage-specific site, and there has to be attention and emphasis given to some of these heritage features. And in terms of timelines, a development proposal could potentially impact the Confederation Bridge redevelopment as well. So depending on what might be proposed, vehicular traffic or pedestrian traffic along Confederation Bridge could impact that development. And so pushing back the RFP for a share, which again could be 4 to 8 weeks in order to complete, and it could be at a cost of $5,000 to $20,000. And council will have to direct staff where they'd like to fund that through if that is council's wish. But we could get into, like you said, a position where we're into nominations and into lame duck, and that stops the RFP from going out a little bit further.
Okay, I'll reserve my choice at this moment.
Okay, CAO Morris, did you want to say something before we go back to go through another round if we need to?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So if I interpreted the mayor's question, could we issue the RFP and then perhaps provide the share as an addendum? I'm not sure if that's where the question was going. I think it would be difficult. We've given proponents 2 months to submit, which seems like a long time, but for a development of this size, it's not. I expect they'll need the full 2 months. So, so if we were to compress that time frame by not providing all the information, it would delay their ability to prepare their proposal. So all that's to say, I think we could. I don't think we'd have to wait until the share is finished, but we'd need to know where the share is going. And of course, council would have to approve the share before we made it public. So I think we could probably pick up a couple of weeks, but certainly it would be difficult to issue the RFP without some understanding of where the share is going to lead us, because it could fundamentally change a proponent's concept for the site.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor McGuire, you had your hand up.
Thanks. Mayor Penko, did you have a follow-up to that first, or?
Oh, okay, go ahead, Mayor Penko.
Well, it's just that potential cascading impact and the decision on the bridge. Council may make a decision to defer that until we fully evaluated what our RFP submissions and what our choices are here. So there's more than one major decision potentially impacted by a delay. So understanding that this project will require a heritage impact assessment, and is a designated property, we will have final decision on what proponent we choose, what proposal we choose. Then I'm comfortable moving ahead with option one. I think we've got enough guardrails, I guess, within the whole process to ensure that our expectations regarding heritage will be met when the time comes.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor McGuire.
Thanks, Madam Chair. What's the difference between the bylaw rewrite and the share? I'm trying to figure out in my head what information would the share give us that we wouldn't get from the bylaw rewrite? And if we were able to accelerate the bylaw rewrite, would that give us the information in a shorter time frame without some of the drawbacks of the share?
I think the bylaw rewrite is really to be informed by council. So council would have to decide which elements they would want to put into the bylaw, and it would simply be updated. There is a review process that is similar to the share, and the water treatment plant is identified as a bylaw to be updated as part of this process. So it's already in the queue to be reviewed. I think the share will just provide some extra in-depth analysis as to the heritage features. I'm not fully aware of what the project is through the planning department with the heritage bylaw update, but that's something that I can bring back to council or to kind of clarify if that's something you'd like.
Okay, so my understanding is the bylaw rewrite, when the bylaw is passed, it's under the Ontario Heritage Act, and there's a lot of implications to that. So if the chair is going to have more information than that bylaw rewrite, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I think if we can accelerate that bylaw rewrite, that would be really advantageous for this. But the other route we could go is if there's scoring incorporated into this, because it's not like the features are not there's not this big inventory of features that, some need to be kept, there's 3 buildings on the site. The more buildings that are saved, it's better for the environment. It's keeping them out of the landfill. It's good for greenhouse gases. It reuses an existing structure and it preserves the heritage. So if all of that's accounted for in the scoring, great, but I think the scoring needs some tweaking. If the bylaw can be rewritten in the next few weeks and we can still make our timelines, then it's advantageous to do that. But I'm a little bit confused on if this share is really the best option when we're already paying. We've already signed a contract with MTBA to do the bylaw rewrite. So is there anything we can do to get that deliverable moved up?
Through you, Madam Chair, just talking with Carl in the planning department, I think we're still, 3 weeks to a month out to get something through the bylaw update. We can expedite that review as part of the process. We can put that on the docket, but there still is a lot of background work that they're currently sifting through. So I wouldn't expect that they could deliver something within 2 weeks timeframe. And with the evaluation criteria, based on your comments at the MHC, I did tweak that for you. I don't know if you've seen the update within the evaluation criteria to put more emphasis on the visual and the heritage. And we did tweak the language as well under the visual and heritage preservation, as well as some language that comes out of our OP to really highlight the need and want to preserve the heritage features and aspects and the cultural aspects of the property as well. So we did our best to really put that in the RFP to make it clear that they can't just demolish the building. That's not what we're looking for. Also, council is going to have an opportunity to review some of the proposals that come through as part of the evaluation process of the RFP. So any of the highest scoring proponents would then have an opportunity to present to council, and then council would have an idea of what is going to be proposed. And again, you'll be able to kind of weigh in as part of that to say this does meet our expectations for heritage preservation or it doesn't. And then we can, always go back to the proponent and let them know. And there's an opportunity, again, through site plan control and other means to get to where we need to be potentially.
That's a great point. The criteria in this draft is really well laid out and iterated holistically. My concern, though, I guess, to the point system is that if 60% is kind of the pass-fail threshold, you could have an offer to purchase, you could have financial capability, and you could have relevant experience and meet that 60. And the vision and concept summary is only 30 points. So if that was, increased to 50 points, or if there was 10 or 20 points added for the heritage preservation, just to give that at least 50 of the points that are going towards the design of the project, I think for me, that would be enough to have the confidence in it. I'm not sure how all those sections are going to come together when only 30% of the grade comes down to design, heritage, all of that stuff.
And really, we're here to take some feedback from council with regards to the RFP, including the evaluation criteria. So if members of council want us to tweak those, that's what we're here to hear. So.
Thank you for that. Councillor Brennan has another comment or question. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think the RFP document, as it's written, is great. And the other piece of that, which I haven't seen, I don't think is on here, is the marketing piece. I don't want to get into the tail wagging the dog or an operational sort of thing. I think what you've put forward is reasonable. And as you just said, we as the elected officials will have an opportunity to comment what comes back. And ultimately it's up to us. And so once again, I think that, the time is nigh to get going, and let's market this perfect piece of property that's going to be a gem and see what comes back. I think that what you've put forward is good. And and the other point, not to harp on the bridge, but that's another political decision, and I'd love to hear from my colleagues. Do you want cars on it or not? Because that's up to us. But at the end of the day, this is a great document. I'd love to see. Hopefully, we have tons of interest and we have lots of decisions to make when we get proposals. So that's it for me.
Councillor Alford, did you want to weigh in now that you've been listening?
I have, and I could agree with Councillor McGuire if we up the vision and concept summary by a bit, 10 points, something like that. And I feel like I've heard enough in terms of safeguards, which is what I was kind of looking for, to protect what we have and the heritage of that site. And we have that through the new bylaw. We have it, if we have it reflected in the scoring, how important this is. If we can deal with this when the proponents come forward with their concepts, and we can deal with that at site plan control, then I feel more comfortable that we can, at any of those turns, ensure that the developer is on the same page as the vision we have for protecting our heritage assets. So I think I could go ahead with option one if we tweak that scoring a little to ensure that that has a prominent place in the decision making.
McGuire? Thank you for that, Councillor Alford. Go ahead, Councillor McGuire.
Thanks, Madam Chair. So based on that, I'd suggest that we add 10 points for heritage. I'd also like to see 10 points added for environmental sustainability. So like if two proposals were equal and one's LEED certified and another's not, there's some incentive for that. And then that would take the whole total design aspect when combined with the vision and concept summary to 50. And then those points could be taken proportionately out of other sections if there's agreement for that. But on the one condition of this is that we reach out to MTBA and we're absolutely certain that that bylaw rewrite isn't coming down the pipes in the next week or two, because it would just be a shame to push this through tonight and then have that bylaw rewrite, because the bylaw there isn't a new bylaw yet. And we've spent money because we intend to pass a new bylaw. And if we get that information after these come out, then it's irrelevant, right? So I just want confirmation on that.
Mayor Panko, you had your hand up. Did you want to add something?
Yeah, let's see. Let's go ahead first.
Oh, sorry, C.R. Morris, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So valid points all around. We could certainly check tomorrow on the status of the heritage bylaw work and find out where it is, and we can let council know. But a good point. If it's coming forward in 2 weeks, we can fashion this in such a way that we'll have more insight. So we'll do that and get back to members of council as soon as we know.
I'll weigh in now. I sit on the Municipal Heritage Committee, as does Councillor McGuire, and we talked about this at great length, and it was really, people were passionate about the fact that this has finally come forward. In terms of what Councillor Brennan said, the bridge, I ran on wanting the bridge to be restored, and that was 12 years ago. And we're still at that point where we're wondering what we're going to do with the bridge. So I really hope it's part of all of this, and I hope that we can look at, restoring it again. I think I started because I sit on the committee, and I appreciate that committee. It's a hardworking committee. The chair, they're all very, very interested in heritage and have researched it. They've worked hard on bylaws and they meet regularly, and they're a great committee. And their recommendation was 3. However, to move this forward, it looks like there's a majority that would move with 2. The only other thing I would add with that is that the chair, Dorothy Hudson, mentioned to me that perhaps since we're already doing that in planning, maybe as people have already said, if we could move that up so that the water treatment plant, the water part that is identified, could be made into a designated features bylaw, then we would be able to use that as a share to move forward. And that would be my hope if we could do that. But I do agree with what Councillor McGuire said about changing that. And thank you for listening to all of us. Mayor Panko, did you want to add something?
Just on the scoring system, I think if we want to expand vision and concept summary to 40 points and add environmental sustainability at 10, as per Councillor McGuire's suggestions, I think we can simply have it at 120 instead of 100. I mean, it does dilute all the other factors by a proportionate amount, right? So, anyway, for consideration.
Councillor McKenna, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just it's a great conversation, and I did read the report carefully. I'm trying to, as Councillor Brennan reminds us, to stay out of the operational side if we can. So I'm assessing the risk here to the corporation or to our reputation, and I'm trying to, so I'm not necessarily reassured that, oh, don't worry, council's going to get a look at 2 or 3 proposals later on, and without some solid information. If you look at these without some, so the proponents come back with some changes to those buildings, and then it becomes our opinions which ones protects heritage and which ones don't, without some reference. we've got the bylaw and that should lay it out. But the share might, if I understand this correctly, it gives me a blueprint or a frame of decision so that it's not just Peter McKenna's opinion. Oh, I like red brick better than stone or something like that. And we all take our job seriously. So I know it wouldn't be frivolous. So I guess, is that the reason why the Heritage Committee proposed either the share or the heritage evaluation, so that it takes out of our hands our opinions and our dreams and hopes and puts gives us a frame of reference to guide us in the future?
Yes, for sure. Yes.
Okay. So, and then the only other, if I may, Madam Chair, so the bylaw would give me that frame of reference as well in a couple of months, about the same time as the proponents are coming back with their proposals. I don't want to be standing in front of a company or a developer or a number of them who are suggesting about spending millions of dollars here and get into and look amateurish that I don't know what I'm talking about when it comes to heritage features, or I don't know, or I start bringing up my opinion on things. So if the bylaw gives me that reference, then I'm comfortable with option one. If it's not going to do it, then I at least need the share, which is number two, to help guide my future decisions on the proponents. I hope that makes sense.
Yes, it does. I agree with you. That's why we wanted either option 2 or 3. Councillor McGuire, did you want to add to that? Go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to say that the issue is that we changed the rules partway through the process. So if we adopt the bylaw as it's recommended or whatever's proposed to us in the coming weeks, but the RFP's already been released, there's that chance that the applications have gone under one set of rules, and now we've adopted another set of rules mid competition, and I don't know if that is going to be a problem or not, but that's the problem that is supposed at the Municipal Heritage Committee, because the last time we did this, the first proposal was to demolish the structures. So I don't think it's unreasonable to think that somebody would love to get in there with a wrecking ball and clear out that section of waterfront. But I just want to set clear expectations in this RFP, and I'm not sure how to do that.
Councillor McKenna, go ahead.
Just to finish my thought on that, the RFP itself does go into great detail about the heritage features. So Ms. Crowder's pointed that out to us, and a developer reading that would understand the value we placed on it. Maybe this particular brick has got to stay, that's not in there, but the emphasis that we've placed on this jewel, or it could be jewel, I think is robust enough in the RFP itself that any developer reading that won't be looking for wrecking balls. So I'm comfortable with that. So I'm heading back to number 1, I think, at this point, and I'm going to stay there for now. Option 1.
Councillor Brennan?
Oops. Yeah, I'm not going to talk again. I'll just say this. If, and council, can we decide collectively on these 3 options? But my prediction would be that if we do not put an RFP out, this council will not have a decision on this property. And that's just the fact of the matter. And I think the RFP that was presented to us is reasonable. It recognizes the heritage features of the property, and it enables us to have a look at what comes back. We're not bound to take any of the proposals that come back. So I'm option 1. I'd like to have some say on what happens here, but if we go 2 or 3, I doubt that we're going to have any say at all. We'll leave it to the next council, and maybe they won't be able to get it done either. So let's move forward. That's what I say.
Okay, so I understand now and look at my scorekeeping here. We're the majority of people are number one, but I would just add, please, that I was reassured by some of the things that Julia, you said to us about the description of it. And I'm also encouraged that we might get that designation made before this. We could go, you're going to go to option one, but could we hope that we could speed up that process so that people at least have that as part of their package? Go ahead.
So through you, yeah, I reached out to Carl while you guys were having your discussions, and he said that we are hoping for later in spring for the overall bylaw project update. But if council wants to accelerate the timeline for this project, MTBA has advised they are open to starting sooner.
That's great. That's good news. Okay, thank you, everyone. Go ahead, Councillor Alford.
Okay, so I just want to recap for my own. So if we change the evaluation criteria to increase, as discussed, maybe even take Mayor Panko's suggestion so that nothing's lost. And Julie has indicated that the bylaw rewrite could be fast tracked. And people seem comfortable with what's in the RFP itself. Again, we're not going to have the bridge discussion tonight because I think a whole bunch of people, or some people, have forgotten what Mr. Dunlop told us about the traffic going across that. So we'll save that discussion for when that gets on the agenda. And so I do feel there's enough safeguards, and then there's site plan control, which both Councillor Brennan and I belong on PAC right now. So I think I can be comfortable with those two relatively minor changes, making sure that the bylaw is fast-tracked and upping the evaluation criteria to reflect council's the importance we place on that heritage designation. Then I'm okay to go with option one. And I am very excited that Julia's come up with a plan for marketing this to a broader pool of developers that may have, it's not outside the realm that they might want to power their whole building, and they would be capable of do that if they reintroduce the turbine. So there's an out of the box thought, Julia. So I'm okay with going with one, with the changes that council's discussed.
All right, Julia, we're given enough direction. Obviously, it's number one, but we've added some provisos on that. Do you feel comfortable with your direction? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, moving on to priority issue 8.3. It's award of tender for the Town Hall Phase 3 renovations. Report 2022-17, and it's with Director Manhire. Go ahead, Director Manhire. Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So we're here this evening. We're looking at phase 3, awarding the tender for phase 3 for the Town Hall renovations. As council is aware, the phase 1 was the Welcome Center. Phase 2 was the administration and reception area. And phase 3 will include administration offices as well as the council chambers and meeting spaces upstairs. So we're looking at award of tender of 2021-CS-009, which is the Town Hall renovations. The recommendation before council is the council award the tender renovation to Braun Construction in the amount of $2,529,877.66. And further, the council authorizes staff to enter into negotiations with Braun Construction to value engineer the tender submission to reduce the total cost of the project where possible. And the cost is higher than what was anticipated. And what we're hearing from our consultants is that this is consistent with the times that we're in, unfortunately. So we are looking to try to do that, try to bring the cost down overall. But we're also cognizant of A, the timing, and B, the design process that council, as well as a number of different community groups engaged in to help us design the town hall component. So we want to make sure that we do not lose that piece of it in any redesign that we do. The rest of the report is there. We are in the fortunate position of having a capital reserve fund that is significantly higher than what we had anticipated. And so there are funds there. There are also funds available through the building reserve that can be used to offset the additional cost associated with this. And there's a recommendation in the report for that as well.
Thank you. Comments, questions from my colleagues? Councillor McGuire, go ahead.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Thanks, Director Manhire. Will there be a report back to council after the value engineering work has been completed?
Madam Chair, yes. What we'll do is we will be going through the whole process, and we will update council as we go through the construction process in order to just fill you in on kind of what's happening with that tracking. Through the consultants, we have also identified a number of different areas that we will start with in terms of the conversation with the contractor. So those are pieces that we already have on the slate.
Okay. Councillor Alfred, you were next. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. No, I am supportive of staff's recommendations. Just a couple of things that I'm curious about. So, as I said, I'm supportive of staff's recommendation of awarding the tender. I would want to see what happens through value engineering. In phase 2, I think there were some things changed, and in some of the cases, I was of the opinion that they should not have been. So I would like to see the value engineering and what changes are being made. But again, I am saying reward the contract at 2.529. So I am comfortable that we are going in there without even before any value engineering, although it's wonderful to always save money. But this is the last piece of the grand scheme in Town Hall. So I will be looking for to make sure that it says, and council has been exceedingly involved in the design of this. So they're all invested in this project. So apologies ahead of time, Art. We will want to see the value engineering that's being planned. And the other thing is, do we have I didn't see or if this is a separate issue, I didn't see anything for project management, or is that what V&G is going to do for us? Manage the contractor?
Madam Chair, it's part of the contract for them to manage any change orders or design features. So they'll be the consultant all the way through. They have also hired the consultants, our engineers that have helped with the design pieces. So just to be clear, and I think it might help council be more comfortable with this, is that when we do value engineering, we're trying not to affect the overall design concept that was developed through that consultation. This is more as an example, where we place the rooftop unit for heating and cooling in the area. So we have it placed at this point in an area that will preserve a little bit more of the sightline from the council chambers. There may be an opportunity to move that and put up some shielding that would do that and have some cost savings associated with it. But if we ever got into taking a look at, and I don't believe that we will, but if we ever got into looking at the wall finishes in council chambers as an example, there's paneling, oak paneling on the walls in council chambers. We would not change that unless council agreed that that would be the way to go, and that the cost savings would be worth the difference in the design or the overall feel of the project at the end of it.
Yeah, I think my concern was not for the finishes. You'd probably have to arm wrestle us all after trying to change those kinds of things. It was more the infrastructure stuff that I was referring to, Art. Thank you.
Mayor Panko was next. Go ahead.
Thank you. I too will support the staff recommendation, and as much as we would love to see it come in at a lower price, I think it's not shocking to see the result, and considering the labor market and material shortages and the challenges that are still out there. So, and I support the concept of value engineering to try and reduce the ultimate final cost. As has been said, we've been moving this forward at a good pace, and we're all anxious to get this completed, make the improvements that we all need to see.
Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor McKenna.
Thank you. I too support the staff recommendation, and I appreciate Director Manhire clarifying, because the recommended is that we award the tender, which is great, and the amount, but further authorize to value engineer, staff to value engineer. Sorry. So it's not staff value engineering it, it's VG architects who will be doing that work with staff, just to be clear, because it says staff are doing that.
As a process, Madam Chair, staff will lead the discussion, but it will involve the architects, it will involve the engineers, and it will involve the general contractor involved.
Okay. So again, I'm supportive. The last point I'd make is I think Mayor Panko quite a few meetings ago talked about, and I don't know if it was in the RFP or not, talked about what can we salvage out of this and donate either to real or sell or what, and that's still a feature of this project, that we're going to try and salvage what we can, recycle it, put it back into use, as I understand.
Yes, Madam Chair, that's all part of that. And you will see some of the furniture as an example, some of the oak chairs and things in the new council chambers as well. So we will be taking what we can out of that process. And that's all been identified with our designated substance report that was done earlier in terms of what we can salvage. And then the pieces that are salvageable will be reused either by us or through REAL.
Thank you.
Do you want to comment?
Yeah, just as long as we don't salvage that carpet, it's gone. It's out.
Yeah, it's gone.
I believe the DSS identified that.
You might have to.
The duct tape can go with the carpeting.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I support this, and you know, with you know, my colleagues and especially Councillor Allen and the mayor, this has been a heck of a long time coming, and I just hope and pray that I have an opportunity to sit in that new council chambers at some point. But yeah, I support it, and I know that it's a little bit higher than we expected, but I know you've got the finger on the expenses, and we'll do what we can.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Councillor Brennan refers to yourself and the mayor and himself as being waiting for it a long time. I was there in 2003, so, and I've been waiting that long.
You win. Councillor McGuire, did you have a comment? No? Okay, it looks like option one it is. And I just want to say, Director Manhire, one thing on behalf of the Accessibility Committee. The accessibility upgrades that you made to the council is going to be very, very greatly improved for people. I know seniors, the stairs were never okay. You know, Tom Folks used to curse very loudly when he had to go up those stairs, and you know, so I think those are very important things that are going to make our town hall much more friendly and user friendly. Yeah, for sure. So thank you for that. Our last priority issue this afternoon is from a correspondence item from our Committee of Whole meeting on January 24th. It's come back to us for discussion today regarding the National Child Care Program. The province of Ontario has the most expensive childcare in the country. The federal government is committing to spending $34 billion on early learning and childcare spending to lower fees and expand the supply of not-for-profit childcare. If our municipality agrees with this, the City of St. Catharines is asking us to support by making a motion to do so. Go ahead, Councillor Alfred.
To use an expression of my colleague, Councillor Brennan, for me, this is an absolute no-brainer. Because this predominantly affects and will affect women. Now, I think that Ontario, it's high time that Ontario came and followed some of the other provinces in working towards this. We have seen the impact on families without childcare during the pandemic and what that means. And what that means to a woman re-entering, or a man, re-entering the workforce, or being able to have some work-life balance, or being even able to afford to go to work. So for me, this is transformational in terms of families, and as I have said, predominantly women it would be impacted by this, although there are lots of dads who give care as well. But I'm absolutely write it up. I'll sign it.
Councillor Brennan.
Yeah, I'll support it. I'm just checking. I believe that the province is actually very close to signing on to this, and I'll certainly support a resolution. But I got to applaud the province for also taking into account things like all-day kindergarten and that sort of thing. They're negotiating, they're trying to get the best deal that they can. And I think they're very close to that. But I'm happy to support this as it stands. I don't think it's been done yet. I think it will be done.
Yeah, thank you for that. Mayor Panko, go ahead.
Yeah, I was doing the same thing Councillor Brown was doing, and I think it's been about 3 weeks since we've seen anything in the news regarding this. And the Premier indicated at the time he believed they were close, but I see no harm in us supporting this resolution, and if it becomes a moot point, it's a moot point. But either way, there's no harm in supporting it.
Anyone else? Everyone in agreement? Okay, so that would come forward, I guess, Clerk Bennett, next week. Is that true? Okay, thank you for that. And that brings us to
Madam Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
I unfortunately had some technological problems at the beginning, so I was a little late joining. But if you would allow, I would share a conversation that I had the day after we named a street a week ago that I think council would enjoy. I got a call the day after. It had been broadcast on Lake 88 from a very sweet old couple in Perth by the names of Joan and Jeffrey Wickware. Joan's father was Dr. Harold Whitcomb, and their family home is directly across from the library at the corner of Gladstone and Beckwith. And they were just tickled. They wanted to make sure that it was the Dr. Whitcomb, because we referred to him as Mr. Whitcomb and said he came back and became a medical doctor and a coroner here in Smiths Falls. And so we had a really lovely visit. I was so thrilled that they called to let us all know what this meant and give us some more background on Dr. Whitcomb. So after serving in World War I, he did in fact save the life of a young girl on the Rideau and was awarded a couple of awards that were given in later years to the Heritage House to preserve. And also, he was very involved in several things, the Board of Education and also Westminster Presbyterian. He was also very involved in getting Old Home Week 1925 going, and in fact led that parade in 1925. His brother, Frank, was also the superintendent of Frostham Woods. So I just wanted to share with council some additional information and how tickled the family of Dr. Whitcomb was, namely his daughter, all this time later, in hearing that Smiths Falls is going to honor his contributions to Smiths Falls. I thought you'd all enjoy that.
Yes,
I
thank you
certainly
for
enjoyed
sharing
the
that. Yes.
conversation.
Okay,
So thank you, Madam Chair, for that moment.
thank you. Any other comments before we close? I need a motion to adjourn. Councillor Alford, seconded by Councillor Brennan. That the committee of the whole adjourns proceedings at 6:10 p.m. and stands so adjourned until the next duly called committee meeting. All in favor? Have a nice